Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Ray of Hope Ministry Relief. I hate to say it to all of my other guests, but I got my favorite guest with me today. This is my wife of more than 30 years, believe it or not, Michelle Grimes. So Michelle and I met in high school, and we got married after my second year of Bible college, and God has blessed us with three children. Our oldest was a little girl, and she came into this world as a fighter. She was born, we didn't know it at the time, of course, but she was born with a disease called cystic fibrosis. And she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 10 months old. When she was first born, she had some lung issues and some different issues and ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks. That first week was very serious, touch and go kind of thing, but God blessed her with 29 years of life, and living with a child in ministry that had cystic fibrosis had its challenges, just like anybody else would have challenges with that disease. And so we know that there's ministry families out there that have children that are struggling in some physical area. We have been there. We know what it is to have hospital bills and figuring out how we're going to pay for hotels or meals or whatever the case might be when our child was in the hospital. And so, all of those things, God brought us through. God met our needs. God provided for us. And, look back on those days and I wonder how in the world we would have ever made it without the Lord and His grace.
I don't think we would have made it without God. I know we wouldn't have.
Yes.
Mm.
And so, we got married pretty young. I was 19, you were 20. I was very immature as a husband. Um, God's grace has gotten us through the ups and downs of marriage, the ups and downs of child rearing. God's also blessed us with two boys, Luke and Isaiah, and they are both involved in the ministry today. Luke is involved in the worship team at his church, and he and his wife both play an active role in their local church. Then Isaiah and Bailey minister at a church in Chesapeake, Virginia, and are involved there. And he works on staff there as well as the Christian school. And his wife, Bailey, also works part time at the church. And then Luke's wife, Sydney, is a very accomplished CPA and just very thankful for our children, all three of them, and all unique, all different. So we know what it is to raise different children. And so, yeah, we're very proud and thankful for our children and daughter-in-laws. Um, but
Two grandchildren.
yes. Well, give me a chance. We got two beautiful grandchildren. Magnolia was just born not long from the recording of this podcast just a few weeks ago, and Maverick will be 3 years old in just a few weeks. And so we're very excited about this stage of our life, empty nesters, grandparents. It's a whole new world. And so we've been in ministry for since 1996. So next year will be our 30-year anniversary in ministry. And we want to take the things that God has taught us, mostly from the things that I did wrong, to be a help and a blessing to other couples, to other church planners, to other pastors, to other ministry leaders. And so we really have a burden to do that. And again, it's not about what we've done right. I've learned mostly from the things that I did wrong. Um, and so I don't want to come at this from a prideful angle, like we know it all, because we certainly don't. But God's brought us through some stuff, and man, God has brought us through some stuff. And without Him, I honestly don't know where we'd be. Obviously, uh, certainly wouldn't be here talking about this today. So, let me back up and talk a little bit about our story. So I mentioned our daughter was born with cystic fibrosis. Thankfully, Uh, those first several years were pretty rough physically for her. She got it to a period where she did really, really well, was out of the hospital for how many years at one time?
She was out of the hospital 9 year span, about a 9 year span, really.
Yeah, so 9 years. That's unheard of
Yeah,
for cystic fibrosis
she was in
kids.
the hospital about 9 years. Yeah.
Um, you
But
know,
before that, she like had a lot of hospitalizations and a lot of antibiotics. But
I can talk from a dad's perspective of how that was, but how about a mom's perspective? Like watching your daughter, like knowing she's got this terminal disease, knowing that eventually we found out she needed a lung transplant, which she never was able to get. But like, what what got you through that? I mean, obviously God's grace, but
yeah,
like
I
specifically.
mean, it was hard seeing her struggle like that with the CF, but honestly, she did really well. Um, she didn't really have a lot of terrible, terrible times. She would have to be on IV antibiotics a few times a year. Um, but that's kind of normal for a child or a person with CF, I guess. It is nowadays, or it was then. But I mean, it was hard, it was a challenge
Mm.
because she didn't like taking her medicine, she didn't like taking her treatments, but we
Hmm.
did because we made her when she was living at home because we knew that was best for her and that would keep her healthy.
Yeah, if you know of anybody that has cystic fibrosis, and things are a little different now. They have some medications now that they did not have when she was younger, when she was
Mhm.
small. But the process of somebody born in the mid 90s or early 90s with cystic fibrosis, um, you're supposed to do breathing treatments, you're supposed to do vest treatments, which is chest therapy treatments. It's a very time consuming process, and I don't think, at least from my perspective, I really thought about how frustrating that must have been for her all those years, to have to, get up early in the morning and do her treatments and then take her medication every time she had a meal and do her treatments again at night and take all the medication she had to take and constantly coughing and constantly having digestive issues. She struggled a lot with that, and but God blessed her. Like Michelle said earlier, 9 years not having to have a hospital stay is almost unheard of
Mhm.
with cystic fibrosis, and that was mainly during her teenage years, right? When she was probably doing her best. Would you say?
Yeah, until she turned 18 and
Yeah.
went out on her own. Yeah,
So yeah, kind of leading up to that, we were ending our pastorate in Ohio, getting ready to move to Erie, Pennsylvania, and she turned 18 during that time and decided to move out and on her own, not on her own, but move out from under our house and kind of started doing some things on her own and really wasn't taking care of herself health wise. At some point, we believe during that time, she was introduced to alcohol. We won't go into all that, but we believe she was introduced to alcohol during that time, possibly drugs during that time, maybe in her late teens, early 20s. We're not really sure when that got started. Um, but then she came back to live with us for a while, and it was an on again, off again type of thing for many years. Um, we always wanted to make sure that she had a safe space. We always wanted to make sure she was protected. We always wanted to make sure she was safe. But at the same time, we had very important boundaries because we had
Mhm.
two other children that we were raising, because our home is a sacred space. And so she didn't always follow those guidelines. And so, it was off again, on again throughout the rest of her life, really. And so we have pastored a prodigal child. Uh, we have pastored a child with critical illness, parented a child with a critical illness, and pastored a child with a critical illness. Um, and again, we look to God's grace and say it's only by the grace of God that
Mm.
we were able to keep going. And I look back at some of those years and realize I was not a very good husband. I was not a very good pastor. I was not a very good dad to my other children. I stayed frustrated a lot. I stayed discouraged a lot. I stayed very agitated a lot. And when you're going through that, you tend to take it out on the people you love the most. I don't know why in the world we do that. I guess it's human nature, sinful nature. But man, there were some tough spots during those years.
Yeah.
Um, can you relate to that?
Yeah. It was especially in Erie when we went to Erie to plant flagship, it was constant spiritual warfare the whole 12 years we were there. Complete constant warfare. Um, just it was hard. It was really, really hard.
And that's not to say spiritual warfare is over now, but there was an intense battle. And what's one of the things that I always tell church planners, and I hope and believe that our North American Ministries tells church planners, is when you go to plant a church and you invade the devil's territory that's never been invaded before, you need to be spiritually prepared. And I don't feel like we were. That's nobody's fault but our own. But man, I look back on those years and realize that there's so many things that I wish I had done differently, could have done differently. I was telling somebody earlier that, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with trying to fix my daughter. I was obsessed with trying to fix
Yeah.
her addiction. I was obsessed with trying to fix her. And I couldn't fix her. I couldn't fix her addiction.
Mm.
And because I was so obsessed with that, I missed out on enjoying my daughter. Not enjoying her addiction, no, but enjoying her as a person, as an individual, because I was so obsessed with fixing her. And so, if you've got a prodigal in your life, whether it be a child, a niece, nephew, whoever it is, realize that God may use you as a vessel to help them, but you cannot fix them. And so the sooner you realize that and release them from your ability and trust in God and His ability, the better off you will be and the
Mm-hmm.
better off the relationship with that person will be.
Yeah.
Um, so long story short, she struggled with addiction. I'm guessing 8 years,
I think it was more.
serious
I
addiction,
think it was more than eight
maybe
years.
maybe more, but I would say at least 8 years. Um, I think there were times that she struggled more than others. We don't know when she was introduced to methamphetamines. We know that she did try other things through the years, but meth was her demon, if you want to use that term.
Drug of choice is
Yeah,
what she
drug of
would say.
choice.
Yeah.
And she told us one day that I think she told her mom one day that she was going to use until the day she died. I think that Charity had literally given up hope in
Mm-hmm.
ever being able to conquer. There was 8 months, probably the best 8 months of her adult life, at least from our perspective, that she was clean.
Mm-hmm.
She gained weight. She looked healthy. Her face was full. Her heart was full. She was going to church. She was involved. She was active. She um, had broken some ties with some uh, bad influences, all those things. And we literally felt for those 8 months that we had our daughter back. Um, but one of the things that you need to know about drugs, and one of the things that you need to know about alcohol or pornography or whatever it may be for you, is that when you're done with whatever your addiction is, it may not be done with you. And that's one of the things that we really want to emphasize at Ray of Hope Ministry Relief is that we don't only want to see people set free from addiction, we want to do what we can to prevent it to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it gets such a stranglehold on people that they never experience freedom the rest of their life. And so if we can prevent it, it's much better if we can do that. But obviously, only God ultimately can do that. But um, and so unfortunately, my wife and I lost our daughter September the 30th, 2022. So the time of this recording is coming up on 3 years. And grief comes in waves. Wave hit my wife earlier today, uh, and people grieve differently. One of the books that has been recommended to us and that I've found to be very helpful, I'd encourage you to get it. If you don't need it, you probably know someone who does. How to Get Through What You'll Never Get Over. It was written by Bill Prater. And him and his wife lost their son in a tragic accident. And there's so many great quotes in that book, but one of them that really stuck out to me was, people don't expect you to get over the birth of your child. Why would they expect you to get over the death of your child? And it's like somebody that has an amputation. Like, you have lost part of you.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you have lost part of you. And, and even though you can learn to cope without a leg or without an arm, you are never the same. And for a person who's lost a child, you should not expect them to be ever the same. But God can help you get through anything. As I said earlier, that day I thought I'd be a puddle the rest of my life. And God and God alone has gotten us through. Michelle, is there anything you want to add to maybe a parent that has a prodigal child, or a child that has some kind of terminal disease, or even a parent that's lost a child? Anything you would want to say to any of those parents?
Well, I mean, I know before Charity passed away, I had given up praying for her because I didn't think she would ever, change or ever be rescued out of that lifestyle. So I just gave up praying for her. And if you have children that are in addiction or living away from God or whatever, just don't give up praying for them. I wish I hadn't have done that, and somehow I feel guilty about that.
And Michelle and I have had this conversation many times. And as a parent, we all look back, and I think every parent that's honest looks back and says, I wish I'd have done this or that differently. And the enemy loves to remind you of either your mistakes or your perceived mistakes. And I
Mhm.
told Michelle the other day, I said, we've been learning in Revelation that the prayers of the saints rise up before God as incense. And I said, all those, 27 years or however many years we prayed for our daughter, or you prayed for our daughter, those prayers still rose before the throne of God. Just because you didn't pray for her those last 9 months or those last couple of years doesn't mean that your prayers weren't still being heard in the ears and heart of God. But I understand, how how the enemy uses that against her. Um, and he that's how cruel he is. He doesn't care about your grief. He doesn't care about your pain. He doesn't care about your suffering. And he will take your mistakes or your perceived mistakes, and he is called the accuser of the brethren for a reason. Um, and so, uh, you know, one of the things that we want to do is just be a listening ear to parents that are struggling or going through things that we've been through. Like I said earlier, we don't have all the answers. We don't know all the answers by any stretch of the imagination. But it sure would have been helpful to have people, and it was helpful for those that did, that we could talk to and that listened to us and said, "Hey, I don't necessarily have the answer to what you're going through, but I have been through something similar." The Bible talks about, taking the comfort that you have received from God and using it to be a comfort to others, and that's what we hope and pray that we can do. Our theme verse for our ministry is Isaiah 61:3, and part of that verse says that God will give us beauty for ashes. And September 30th, 2022, we just felt like a big pile of ashes. I mean, we just felt like our life was over. And God, in His majestic masterpiece, His artwork, He has taken those ashes and He is doing something beautiful with them. And I have an opportunity once a month to speak to a group at the Alcohol and Drug Rehab Center here in Black Mountain and share the hope that we have in Jesus and share Charity's story and let them know that even though she gave up hope, they don't have to give up hope. Um, I've been able to write some about uh, our process and what we're going through, and some books that I've had published. And so we're just praying that God would continue to turn these ashes into something beautiful for His glory. And so when you think about us, please pray for us. If God brings you if God brings us to your mind, it's not coincidental. It's not by mistake. It means there's a couple in Black Mountain, North Carolina that needs your prayers. And so lift us to the throne of God and ask God to use us for His glory. Michelle, thank you for taking a few minutes and sharing about what God's brought us through. And if you need help, if you need someone to talk to, if you need someone to pray for you or with you, you can reach out to my Facebook page, Ray of Hope Ministry Relief. You can reach out to our, I have a website. You can reach out, rayofhopeministryrelief.org. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We want to do everything we can to be a blessing to the body of Christ and help people through this. Our motto is caring for those who care for others. And so God bless you. Thank you for being with us today.